Hey guys, it's Chris from the Ultimate Recycler, and today we're at a museum. It's a museum local to where I grew up on the farm, and if any of you have been following the channel, you know about the Great Farm Cleanup, which has just concluded. I'm on my way home from the last trip, and I wanted to pop into the museum here and just give you a bit of a tour. If you're in the district, it is absolutely amazing, and it's a must not miss thing. I'm standing right beside a tree of taps, can you believe it? So the museum was started by two brothers, John and Michael Woods. They were local farmers, they were bachelors, they loved collecting, and they started buying tractors and all sorts of farm-related relics, and eventually their collection outgrew their property. And sadly, John passed away a number of years back now. Michael's still going, and the whole museum has turned into a community-type tourist attraction, and it's great for the small town of Rupanyup, which is only, I don't know, only about 500 people, but it's quite an extensive cropping farming area here. So without any further ado, let's have a bit of a walk around. I'll try and give you a bit of a commentary as we go, and we probably won't even see all of it, but we'll do a bit of a lap around and hopefully not get lost. It's a big shed. So it's right on the side of the Wimmera Highway. It's Woods Farming and Heritage Museum. It's open every day, 9 till 4. I believe they have a Facebook page, and it's staffed by volunteers. I think there's a committee that run it. It's become quite a large establishment. I'm sure it's much more than what John and Michael ever envisaged, but it's fantastic that they preserved so much of the local history. And it's not all antique stuff. There's a lot of machinery, but there's all sorts of modern stuff. There's even wedding dresses. They have recreated a couple of houses inside the shed, back to certain eras. There's farm machinery and stuff here. There's the tractor shed down there. We'll have a bit of a walk around before we go. But let's go inside. I'm not sure what the admission is. Oh, here we go. Adults $15, school children $5, small children free, and a complimentary cuppa and biscuit. There's good country hospitality for you. Okay, so it's nicely set up in here, very modern, and they obviously do provide some good hospitality with cuppas and things. Let's walk this way first. And this is what you would not expect to find in a farming museum. A lot of wedding dresses. Now, a lot of stuff gets donated as families wind up their estates, similar to what I've been doing with Mum and Dad's farm. A lot of old stuff gets donated. People that have had their own private collections have gifted the entire collection here. It's become a central point, and I haven't been in this section before. It was just being set up last time I was here, and this is amazing. So it's sort of not something you would come to see if you were interested in old tractors, but the museum encompasses all areas. Look at the silverware. So a lot of the agricultural and pastoral and agricultural shows that most country towns had large prizes for stock and for all sorts of categories such as wool and wheat and everything. Some of the prizes back then were really expensive. Some of those are possibly sterling silver, not just plated. Anyway, I probably won't hang around this room too long because it doesn't interest me, but if you are interested in this sort of stuff, by all means, you can bring your husband along to look at the tractors and you can have a look at this stuff. Beautiful cabinets. They've spent a lot of money setting this up. All right, so I've probably gone the wrong way through this. I think this is the way you normally leave the museum, but it's quite a rabbit warren. This is a Fordson room, so suddenly we're into tractors. So they've got a lot of modern models. There's a sign for McCormick Farm Oil, a lot of brochures. So they like to save everything. Handbooks and instruction books on old machinery, even some tools here, some old Fordson jacks. I do find some of those on farms sometimes. It's going to be really hard to give you an idea of what's in here when I'm just scanning around quickly. Hopefully I don't move the camera too far or too fast. There's even a jigsaw of an old Fordson. Now we can step into a Banyina South School room. So a school room, that's an old sign. I used to play tennis at Banyina. We have lots of maps, old school uniforms. So they've set up a lot of rooms, even the blackboard, and people have left messages. Ha 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 ha. That's great. Someone was doing lines, I will be good. School trophies, and of course the desks and inkwells and all your sort of stuff you would have found in the schools in the old days. I do get quite a few of those school desks from time to time. They sell quite well through the shop. I used to get about $80 to $100 for them, but they were very awkward to move because they were one solid pipe frame. But lift up lids, of course. And I used to have old guys come in and say, I remember sitting on these when I was at school, and you would reach forward to the girl in front of you with a ponytail and grab her hair and dip it in the inkwell. I think that was a fairly common prank that was played with the school kids. So, oh, there's a very old sign. Lalette North School. So that's been in the weather a long time. But it's great that people are saving that stuff and not just throwing it on the fire. This room looks to be more army related. There's a lot of fairly modern Anzac tins and old photos of military personnel. And a lot of families did have framed photos of their loved ones that went off to war. Those would date to the probably 1920s, probably World War I era, those ones, by the look of the uniforms and the frames. A nice old clock, a bit of trench art, some flags, and then a music room. So it's quite varied. And oh, these old organs, I've had a few of these through the shop over the years too. As beautiful as they are, they're very hard to sell. These were a pump organ, so you actually had to pedal them or pump the foot pedals to get the air pressure up. They sounded quite eerie. There's a standard piano in the corner. But yeah, I've had a few of those organs, really difficult to sell. Oh, here comes Michael. Do you mind being on camera, Michael?
Oh, I've been on the camera a few times.
I reckon you would have. Do you like the sign?
Yeah, no, it's ripper.
That's great, fantastic. So I believe they're going to set up an Acklands section for the business that was in Rupanyup, so I'm pleased my sign will go somewhere it's liked. And Michael just put the sign here in an Acklands room, so it's found its home. Fantastic. So they've got an old, looks like a model mouldboard plough, and there's a model, that's what they used to call an Aki bar, and Dad actually had one of those. We sold one of those on eBay when we first started the farm cleanup, an original full-size one, but that's essentially what it was. So there we go. They were quite an advanced tillage system for, as tractors got bigger and more powerful, the cultivators got larger and larger, and these had folding wings, and they were a good way to cover large areas for scarifying or cultivating. Of course, now they're even bigger and bigger, and Acklands as a company, I don't know when they closed up, but they were back in the early 1900s, and I probably went through to I would imagine the 1970s. I should have asked Michael that. But anyway, I'm really pleased that my sign has found its home. Now, we missed a room here. This is a music room. It looks a little bit more religious. Oh, it's probably more of a churchy type room. Oh, I was looking up there. That was the music room. And in here is lots of models in glass cases, beautifully displayed. More tins. Collection of little jugs. So I don't think they say no to anything. It's pretty much whatever you want to donate, they will find a room for it. And there's another section of this shed where there's actually old shop fronts set up. And I mentioned they've got a couple of houses set up inside this shed. We have a couple of real tractors, a Ford, a Massey Ferguson. That's a scoop when they used to dig dams and things, and a lot of these were dragged around by Clydesdale horses. A beekeeper's camp. Oh, there's the spinners to get the honey out of the honeycomb, or to have it out of the frames that you have there, the frames that you have in your bee boxes, and you spin them on those contraptions, and a centrifugal force, I think, sends the honey out and it drips down the bottom. Little camp bed, very cute, almost looks like an army hut. And there's a Tonka toy collection over here. A lot of them still in boxes. Oh my goodness, it just goes on and on. Have you ever seen so many Tonka toys? Most of them still in boxes. And it goes around this way, around the corner. My goodness, that's a good collection. So there's just room after room. You could spend days here. Absolutely. So we're back out in more of a shed type area now. And here I think we have one of the houses that we've recreated. complete with a galvanised iron chimney. There's a sign for the Rupanyup centenary. Oh, I don't know when that would have been. I'm not familiar with Rupanyup's history. Matoa was 1872, so 1970. So I reckon it'd be early 70s sometime. That's a large cool safe that you would have hung up and kept your meat and food in there to keep the flies off it. Some various old heaters. Another cool safe there with hessian on it. It has the water tank on the top. And I think the hessian was supposed to dip into the water tank, and then water sort of gravitates down the hessian into the bottom tray, and with the air going through the wet hessian it creates a cooling effect. That's the only way you could keep your food cool in the old days. So this room is Webb's Mill models, and someone's made models, huge big models out of timber. It's obviously a water wheel. There's lots of hessian bags up on the wall, and that's some sort of large, I don't know what that is. Interesting. Very nicely done. And where else would you keep something like that? It needs to be in a museum. Here we have fire brigade, it looks like. We have the old cart with the fire hose on it, various nozzles up on the wall, and of course lots of photos of reasonably local fire brigades and that sort of stuff, some uniforms. Now we get out into the main shed area and we have lots of old engines, vehicles down the middle, tractors, an old ute, some McCormick International tractors, big signs probably from local businesses, and those signs bring a lot of money nowadays to collectors, but I'm glad they've saved them all here. An old petrol bowser, the old clock dial one, lots of small engines. Look at the machinery in here, it's huge display. This is Lawson's garage, and there's a car in there with the bonnet up. Lots of old parts on the shelves. That seriously could be a real workshop in the 1940s or 50s. All the old oil boxes. There's oil bottles and tin tops. A lot of tins in there. A lot of those are quite valuable. Looks like the car needs a new radiator. What do we got over this side? More tins up on the wall. The old shadow board with all your spanners up there. Head gaskets. Fantastic. That's really almost an exact recreation. Even the old tin roof with the exposed beams. That's just pretty much how it was. It would have been hot working in a workshop back then in the middle of summer. No aircon. Okay, let's go around this way. We have a huge array of hand tools, all in display cabinets. Incredible collection. Lots more small engines. When I say small, they're extremely heavy and they're pretty large compared to modern engines. A lot of these ones are only 2 or 3 horsepower, and you can now get a 5 horsepower engine on your lawnmower that you can pick up with one hand. Of course, these had big heavy cast iron flywheels. They didn't rev anywhere as hard as the modern engines do. A lot of Villiers. I've got a few Villiers to try and get going at home. We have shearing stuff over here. And this was the other end of the garage, wasn't it? Yep, that's the car they're putting the new radiator in. Lots of shearing stuff. Well, I had all these engines to run shearing plants, of course. There was no electricity back in the early days. So all the shearing gear was run off old petrol Kero engines or diesel engines. A lot of shearing stencils up on the wall where they used to rub black nugget over them to mark all the wool bales with the owner's initials or the farm's logo and what type of wool it was. There's some wool presses. Lots more hand tools down here. And they're all well displayed, they're labelled. And if they've been donated by people, they put their name there. But most of these were collected by John and Michael Woods. And they've all been painted black. I guess, I don't know, I'm not a thing for painting tools. I like to see them original. Although I guess originally some of them were painted because they weren't chromed back then. A nice big shearer's wool table. People put huge sheets of glass over these and make them as dining tables. There's a cradle for marking lambs, old wool scales. The next section looks more like blacksmithing. So we have the overhead shaft with the flat belt pulleys, and then so there would be an engine at one end of the workshop that ran the overhead shaft, and off each of those flat pulleys there'd be a belt come down to each individual machine. There's a forge in the middle with the charcoal and bellows underneath. That's only a small one. A couple of different forges actually. The old parts storage made out of old boxes there. Dad did much the same with plumbing fittings and things. So some of those old boxes are just great the way they've been made into storage units. Down this end we have more old workshop equipment, a couple of big wagon wheels, all sorts of stuff hanging on the wall. Back in the centre we have, these are bag fillers for filling wheat bags right into the corners with grain to make sure you can get the bag as full as you can. It looks like fire tools. What do we have on this board? There's some silage knives and hay or sickles and a large silage or bill hook or something, a draw knife of some sort, all sorts of things. Look at the drills, wall-mounted drills, a whole row of them. And lots more blacksmithing tools here. These parts go in anvils, and I forget what they're called, but anvils often have a little square hole, a hardy hole I think, and these are tools that drop in there that you can do various jobs when you're blacksmithing. A million different sorts of hammers, probably more than a million. Even some old timber toilet seats, which you would have had over a long drop toilet, so just a big hole in the ground, and someone's used them to mount badges on them. Amazing. Of course, some of the kitchen sinks were similar. They had a big timber piece with a hole cut in the middle for a large bowl. I'm pretty sure these are toilet seats. You wouldn't want to get them confused. Bricks, handmade by convicts at Tasmania Port Arthur. They've got stuff from everywhere, so it's not all local, but they certainly do like to keep a lot of the local history alive. Here we have an electrical shed. Look at all the drills along the back, all the 1950s and 60s Sher drills, old power boards or fuse boxes, Ajax pumps, transformers, all the ammeters and voltmeters, some hurricane lamps, car radios. Everything has a spot in this place. So I think you could get any random thing and bring it in and they'd have a room for it. I mean, they've got a room for Ackland stuff, so my sign was right at home. This is more woodwork gear. We have draw knives and things up on the back there. A large, they call that a bow saw. Panel saws. Most of it's pretty old. What's that, a fly press or something? I'm not sure what that is. Some of this machinery might be rather specialised, I'm not sure. Little circular saw set up there. That's a planer. Lots of, these are sharpening stones in timber boxes. Hand planes. Nice old cabinet on the wall, really looks the part too. And, oh, look at this. We have a separator room or a dairy room, and they're all milk separators. Remember I sold one in the shop recently? Well, just about every farm had a separator, and you pour the milk straight in the top, and out one spout comes skim milk, and the other one nice thick cream, beautiful rich cream. There's a selection of milk bottles at the back there, some butter churns, a milking stool. Very nice, and I like that they've got it in a rustic type shed setup. Looks really good, doesn't it? All these rows of little display sheds. Okay, let's go back this way. It's very easy to get lost in this place. Well, we didn't go down there, but we've seen that one. This is the other end of the row of all the small engines and all the hand tools. It's incredible. That's okay, that was the Bob Wilson tool collection. So it was, okay, the collection was probably donated to the museum here. Or some of them are probably on loan, like permanently on loan. You know, donated or permanently on loan, there's really not much difference, is there? Lots of signs up on the wall here. Old enamel signs, Some of them are probably screen printed. I've got one of those beware of train signs in my shed actually. So a lot of old agricultural and petrol related signs, Goodyear tyres, nice big Ampol sign there. I mean, these sort of signs are generally $500 to $1,000. Some of them can be a lot more. Allen's Pianos, I've seen one of those. Some of them aren't in the best condition, but it's nice they've been saved. More engines, an old push bike, that's a nice early one. And some scooters and little pedal cars, one with a trailer, that's cute. It's probably not that old, that one. It's a bit hard to tell. Some of them are more modern, but it certainly looks the part in here. Nice kids' wheelbarrow collection. There's some older pedal cars, they look like they've been in accidents. Some trikes. And even a pram. I'm sure there's a collection of prams elsewhere. Bug sprayers. More signs right along here. I did have one of those Irvine's Wines signs as well. Peter's Ice Cream, I've had one of those too. Fowler's for cola bottling outfits. That's a nice sign. With the jars and the sterilisers. Now, where are we going next? I think we've missed a room. Let's go back to this one. This room is electrical. Fridges. Actually, where else would you see such an extensive collection of microfiche readers? Do you remember those? Back in the 80s and 90s, you had the little transparent cards and they were magnified onto a screen. Geez, that technology's gone by the wayside. There's a whole line of them. That's amazing. Who would have thought to keep those? Cash registers and washing machines. Wow, all different shapes and sizes. And then we have TVs. Little portable CRT TVs. A whole row of them, all different makes and models. Mostly 70s, some of them into the 80s. Some really early washing machines that weren't much more than a plunger. A little cabinet with cameras. There had to be cameras here. Some enlargers. Oh, little Toshiba TVs. They're cool. A bigger CRT down the bottom. There's another old pram up there. Some trunks. More fridges. In the middle we have a cot and some chairs. So a bit more general furniture. They look like radiograms under there. I can see why they probably had to keep building sheds here. They just keep filling up. Some larger TVs, the more furniture type ones. That's an AWA. Oh, these are going back a bit. That one's a radiola TV. Look at the tuning dial. You'd select your channel and then each channel you had fine tuning. That one looks like is it a Rank Arena or something? Telecolor. There's some video players even. A HMV record player. And even a set of pool cues. Alright, everywhere I look there's just more stuff. Now there's another room up here which has tins. Now a lot of these are quite modern. Tim Tams. Oh, the Arnott's trucks. Some of them are older. These are all Arnott's tins on this section. The ones with the clocks in them, we get those through the shop all the time. Older biscuit tins and your M&Ms. And then in the next section we have the Max tins with the cars on them. We get those quite often as well. More of them here. Every wall is full of tins. These are all Max ones. And more around here. They look really cool with the cars on them. They're actually like a three-dimensional tin too. They're sort of embossed. So they're nice. They sell quite okay, even though they're not old at all. They do sell quite well. Through here, more electrical, more TVs. This is great. The old radiograms, the Bakelite ones. I've had some of those. All the radios up the top. That's a whole row of radios, radiograms. There's a nice early TV. Lots of different sorts. We had similar one to that one in the middle when I was a kid, although we didn't get a TV until I think the 1970s. I can certainly remember not having a TV, only black and white of course back then. And the TV's in the big cabinet with the record player and everything. They were a real big piece of furniture. More radios, more TVs right along the top. An old Edison wind-up gramophone. That'd be another one, or is that just a music cabinet? I think that was just for music, was it? Yeah, or records, yep. Slide projectors, sewing machines. More electronic stuff here. Absolutely everything. And your carpet sweepers and your floor polishers. Let's go back to the sewing machines. I'm sure Christine would like to see these. She had a big collection herself for a while. Lots of treadles there. All your common brands, plus some pretty obscure ones, I'd imagine. More floor polishers. This is the floor polishing section. Why isn't this concrete nice and shiny? Oh yes, vacuum cleaners, of course. And all they're doing is sitting around gathering dust. Boom, boom. Okay, fans and heaters. Oh, that's a nice old console radio. Beautifully restored, that one. But I like the fact that most of this isn't restored. It's just as found. It's rusty, it's been used. It kind of looks real. Sometimes things that are restored just look a bit fake. Electric kettles, electric irons, scales. These little stove things, they're very heavy. They're cast iron, those things. We have mix masters, a Kenwood one, more electric kettles, eskies up the top. It's really hard for me to take all this in for you guys on camera, and I hope I'm not moving the camera around too quick. More mix masters and all their assorted attachments, and kerosene stoves and things down the bottom. British National, that's a heavy looking stove. And yes, double-sided sewing machines. All right, I'm not sure where I need to go next. Where I was heading... Oh, actually, no, we have to go back out here. And did we go right up this end? There's a restricted area there, we can't go through there. Around this side, we have some clothing in here. Looks like some scouting stuff and tourism type pennant flags. Bit of royalty stuff. Princess Diana. Nice little kitchen dresser here with the LED light windows. They were very common. Just about every house had something similar, and they still sell okay, those. Nice with the LED light. Now this section is where they've set up like some shops. We're roughly in the middle of the old shed. And this side is the general store. Oh look, they've even got a section here of old toys just for kids to play with, I'm guessing. All right, so the general store. This is cool. So they've got a kind of a veranda on each side over the shops, all within the big shed. Here we have a classic general store type counter with your big scales and your paper roller or your brown paper dispenser. I've got one of those I have to fix up. A large meat slicer. Love the old counters. Lots of calendars on the wall and boxes of old stock. Look, SPC, that's Shepherd and Produce Company, that's from over my area. We have calendars from Lubeck. Lubeck's barely even a town anymore. There's certainly no shops there. 1941. It's just down the road from the farm. Some Pears soap signs, they're probably reproductions. Yeah, that's great that someone saved those old calendars. Lots of boxes, cheese boxes, old stock type stuff. Some of them, well, most of them are probably just empty boxes. Look at the tins. There's some beautiful tins up there. Some of those would be quite rare. I've sold a fair few Griffiths tea tins over the years through the shop. Those Edward ones are nice. And lots of the other polishing wax tins and lactogen. I've had a few of those. Some old fruit cans. They're really colourful, weren't they? I loved all the old advertising they did with the tins. Tobacco tins, barley sugar, medical stuff. And geez, they're in good condition. They're biscuit tins. A lot of those would be, or there's some Arnott's ones, and Brockoff, which was a Melbourne company. I think they were taken over by Arnott's in the 70s sometime. Guests, Sunshine Biscuits, Swallow and Ariel's were a famous Melbourne company earlier on. So yeah, some beautiful tins, lots of colour. They're in great condition. Old packets of cornflakes. And advertising on the wall. Again, they're possibly reproduction signs, but they look good. Lots of little old bottles in here. I don't even know what this is. Well, it might be it's got a handle on it. Is that a bottle filler? Hang on. I think it might be there's a sign in here, Eckersley's and Sons, Melbourne. I think this is somehow part of a contraption for filling bottles with lemonade. But it's missing parts of it. More toilet seats with badges on it. What's the go with that? Okay. Well, that's the general store. What's across the road? We have the medical centre. And we have lots of fairly gruesome looking medical equipment in here. Some old chemist jars, which I've got some out of a recent shed lot. I still have to go through those. Same with some of these old flasks and things, chemist equipment. I think that's an IFAS machine. It's, I forget what it stands for, but it works on some sort of electrical energy through glass, and it's really scary looking, and I don't know if it ever cured anyone or not. Yeah, it says IFAS. Really, really bizarre medical equipment. I have no idea if it worked. I think they're fairly expensive. Even now, I think a set would bring big money. All your various medical accessories, lots of stuff in the cabinet there, lots of little chemist bottles and various pills and potions, baby scales, yeah, or more baby scales up the top, toilet pans, all the sort of stuff you'd find in an old hospital. The matron, luckily, she's looking the other way, and her patient's escaped. There's no one in the bed. I think with all this gear in here, I'd want to get out too. Across the road here, we have the post office. There's an Australian postie bike. The old post office boxes where you have your key and open up and get your mail. They still have them in most post office. So we have magazines, the telephone exchange, the old manual telephone exchange. Every small town had one of those. Matoa, incidentally, was the last town in Australia to go to an automatic exchange. Lots of telephones down there. So I think that was in the early 1980s. I can still remember picking up the phone on the farm and having to ask the operator for a number that was like just 38 or something like that. So there we go, lots of telephone stuff, some uniforms, even stamp albums. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's how to set up. Oh, they're horses looking from above. If you're in a drone looking down, that's a horse. I didn't recognise the shape. And they're all swingle bars or swingle trees, and they all link together so that your team of horses all pull on the one point evenly. So most old farm machinery that had Clydesdale horses had to have all these linkages and these swingle bars, or swingle trees they call them here, equalising bars. So every horse pulls the same weight. That's cool. I'm glad someone's done that. Okay, over the side here we have hardware and lots of general household stuff. Teapots, kettles. It's more probably a general merchants. Back in the old days, the hardware just didn't have, nuts and bolts and power tools. They were more of a general merchant where you got everything for your your house, to run your household. Even, I mean, general merchants in the early days had food and everything. They were basically an all-in. But this is more hardware stuff. Oh, there's some canisters and kitchenalia. More tools in here. Lots of bakeware. And I like that they've got the old books open on the counter. The old adding machine, which you physically had to crank the handle every time you pressed a couple of numbers you wanted to add together. Little oil cans, nice display of oil cans. And general like household stuff, ladders, brooms, a couple of scythes. And they're food covers to keep flies off your food. All the meat mincers, of course there was always going to be a display of meat mincers. There's another milk separator. And a butter churn. So general hardware stuff, pretty good. And even the door is from a local hardware business, which wasn't that old. I don't think they're around anymore. As far as the business goes, it's been taken over by other businesses. Some old wheelchairs. Back over this side, we have butchers. And more typical scenes you'd see in a butcher, the old meat saw at the back there, scales of course, a meat slicer. Really nicely done up. Even the big rails at the back where they had the hooks on them for hanging up the carcasses. Oh, I'm not sure what that machine is. Maybe a sausage maker. Don't know. And the telephone, so you can ring the other stores. Ducking over here, we have a paint shop. Nice big sign up the top there. Lots of old cans of paint. A mixer. Another older sort of mixer there, a Decorama colour gun. Again, the phone's there, so you can ring the other shops. A couple of ladders, of course, painters' ladders. Very nice. And here we have a boot shop. That's an interesting bike. Big basket on the front. And these seats are out of the old cinemas. They're the flip-up seats from the old movie theatres. Most of the local towns had that sort of thing in their town hall. So all the boot equipment here. Oh, I can smell the leather. You won't smell that, but it has a real old shoe type smell, this room. That's a cool old machine. And then you've got a big sort of setup there for buffing and polishing. All your old cast iron boot lasts. Even some Gladstone bags. Lots of leather tools. And even some horse gear here, the old collars and various things. So leather repairs and the telephone, so you can ring another shop. All right, so that ends the row of shops here. Not sure where to go next. Oh, we have a little room here with like a little outbuilding room here with cool safes for hanging up your food. A larger food safe. And another one there, that's a nice cedar one. A butter churn on top. Some old cane baskets. Another milk separator. Another washing machine. This is more like a laundry. I guess that's a copper where you would boil the water for washing your clothes. Yep. The good old classic concrete laundry troughs. That's a triple one. We've got a double one at the farm. And a really nice old cupboard there. That's an early cupboard with the shield doors. That would be 1800s for sure. And a large water fountain, they call those. It was designed to hang in your open fire and boil water. And then you've got the tap out the front. I'm not sure why they were called a fountain, because they weren't really a fountain. That one's obviously damaged. And a little kid's deck chair hanging on the wall there, of all things. All right, let's back out of there. We have some bottles and things in this cabinet. Nothing very exciting from a bottle collector's perspective, but they save everything here, and that's great, I think. Lots of old parts manuals for Massey Ferguson tractors. Now this goes back to the main room we were in before. So, we have the houses to look in. So this is one of the houses been recreated. Let's go down there. Lots more small engines along here. All stationary engines with their water tanks. These were all water cooled. They weren't air cooled like your modern small engines. So you had to have a tank with so the water could circulate and keep the cylinder cool on the engines. So good collection of engines. So this is Mum's house. This would have been John and Michael's mum's house. It's been recreated and they've set it up in the 1940s era. So here's the kitchen. We have a good heavy cast iron washing basin, an old Lux kitchen stove, a mantel clock and canisters. The dining table here, or the kitchen table, is set. A lamp in the middle. I suspect that lamp's a reproduction, like a 70s one. The old freezer and the fridge. There's the kitchen dresser. Most kitchens had them. That's an Art Deco, sort of 1930s or so one. But remember, when you're setting up a house as it was in the 1940s, not everything is going to date to the 1940s. Only the stuff they bought brand new then at that time. So most houses in the 1940s had lots of stuff that they'd had for a couple of decades. So it's not unusual to see a 1910 sideboard in a 1940s house because it's only 30 years old. So you do have to remember when people are setting up, and when you watch movies and they're set in a certain time, you don't expect to see anything. Say you've got a 1970s movie, you don't expect to see everything in the film set as 1970s because not everything was brand new when they lived in the 70s. We had lots of stuff that was from the 50s and 60s because, you didn't throw it out and buy something new the next year. How cute is that little TV? That's great. So I don't know if that was 40s. We didn't have TV in Australia until the 60s. So yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get picky on that. It's really nicely displayed. That's a nice early lamp. That's a Victorian lamp. And certainly people kept lamps for a long time. And really, they used lamps until the power came through. Most country areas didn't get electricity until probably the 30s, I think. It depends on your area. How cool is this, though? It's great. Set up like a real house inside a big shed. So I would imagine they've built this here. I don't think they moved a house in, but they've basically built it and then redecorated it, probably from memories and from photos as to roughly how the house was. Double bed. Remember, they didn't have queen beds back then, so if you see anyone trying to sell a queen bed and say it's 1930s or 1920s, it's not the case. It may have been modified. There's a classic 40s wardrobe. Dressing table down there. And all sorts of knickknacks and things on the wall. Little shadow box, looks great. Bathroom with a heater. I don't remember exactly how they work. They're like an instantaneous heater. You have to have them burning. They ran on wood chips or coal or briquettes or something. Really classic Art Deco basin there, and a wash bowl and jug. And this is a bedroom. There's a nice cedar chest. So that dates to the 1890s or early 1900. A glory box down there. Another double bed. And another wardrobe. That's a nice wardrobe, actually. Quite nice design on it, in good condition. Even a high chair over there. So you really do feel like you're walking in someone's home. You know they've got it right when you feel like you're actually imposing and you shouldn't be here. So I like that. Really nicely done. So I think there's another house set up which dates to the 1920 or 1910. Grandma's house, 1910. So they've got some LED light around the front. It's an old door frame. They've got the old chase lounge or miner's couch out on the front that's pretty weathered, but they often sat on front verandas. This is much more older style with the dark timber architraves, pressed metal ceilings, a hall stand. This does feel like we've stepped back into time. This is great. The bedroom with the old brass bed. That's kind of a 3/4 size, that one. That cupboard, I think, is a little bit more modern than 1910, but the dressing table is fine. I shouldn't pick on dates, should I? And there's a nice large wardrobe, a couple of good cases up the top. Not much room, but I don't think you had a lot of room in those days. You couldn't afford large, lavish houses with open plan. They were little rooms. A little room was easier to keep warm, I guess. There's another nice cedar chest of drawers. That's definitely into the 1800s. Nice wrought iron bed, very narrow bed, and a cot, complete with sleeping baby. Let's let sleeping babies lie. This is fantastic. I love this atmosphere they've created. So this is like a dining room. There's a fireplace, the nice old, probably an Ansonia mantle clock. That's a Diana ware jug, and that's not quite as old as 1910. Picky. Oh, classic moose painting. These were usually in pairs, and they were often either side of the fireplace. But they were like a formula painting. I think budding artists used to do these and sell them off. They weren't particularly good artistic-wise, but they really kind of suit the era. There's a gramophone separate speaker. That's an early radio. That's 1920s or so. Quite an elaborate one. I haven't seen one quite so big. That might be a speaker behind the door, that end. A crystal cabinet, which is more 1930s. Baby feeder, lots of china. Your willow pattern, classic willow pattern china. Depression era glass jug, green glass there. Nice oil lamp. And your cutlery set. And remember too, in the 1910s, a lot of farmhouses didn't have electricity at all. And so they would have a hanging oil lamp, or they just had lamps on the tables. There was no electric lights hanging from the ceiling. These lights are certainly not that old. I love the pressed metal ceilings though. Now that's more of what they would have had, not in every room, but more in the large dining room on a more affluent house. A huge big hanging lamp. They were often a Miller lamp. And they had a counterweight system, some of them, so you could lower them and light the mantle and then raise them back up to the ceiling. So that's more the lighting from the 1910. There's another Ansonia type clock. Lots of pictures on the sideboard there. And another sideboard that side. Actually, that's an overmantel over the fireplace. Nice fireplace there. Old radio. The radio is not 1910s. And the couch, quite Art Deco, so that's more 1940s as well. It's pretty hard to get a house genuine to 1910 because there's not a lot of older stuff around. There's an old Ericsson phone, that's around about the right era. They often just operated on a party line, so you could wind the crank handle and ring up the person down the line. You only really had however many people were connected on your line that you could talk to. You couldn't go back to a proper exchange. As a cool safe, you used to buy a block of ice. Oh, well, it's an ice chest, not a cool safe. So you buy a block of ice and put it in the top, and the ice would slowly melt and it'd keep whatever's in the cabinet cool. Grandma Jack and Grandma Ada's Woods flower bin from the farm at Rupanyup South. So that's a pretty cool flower bin. Heavy galvanised. No weevil's going to get into that. Little bathroom add-on here with the lining boards in the ceiling. So again, that's quite fitting. This room looks good. That's a very early bath. Tin bath with cast iron clawfoot legs and a baby's bath. So this stuff is definitely all very early 1900s. And this kitchen dresser is quite old too. It's a pine kitchen dresser. Fairly simple, but that's all the furniture was back then. Simple and practical. Another butter churn around. This is a knife sharpener or cleaner. Interesting, you don't see too many of those. You have to crank the handle and you stick the knife in and it polishes the blade. Gem trays for making scones. That's a nice, probably hue and pine, they usually were. Timber bench draining top with the often a cast iron insert bowl. Really nice. That's very early, looks great. And another nice old cast iron stove, that's an IXL double oven. And I know a few people restore those old stoves and they do bring big money. Another Ansonia, when I say Ansonia, they could be Sessions, could be Welsh, could be a number of different American makers, but they're a standard mantle clock from around that era. Very nice, and more of a country kitchen table here with these kangaroo chairs. They usually have a kangaroo at the back. I think it is, or a lyrebird. So they're nice early bentwood chairs. with your basics on the table, old breadboard. Very nice. They've done a really good job with these houses. Fantastic. You wouldn't know you're in a shed. So just beside the house we have the wash house, which is essentially a laundry. So much the same as the other little alcove next to the other place. Some old drinking canteens. A washing machine there, just a plunger type, and an old copper that you lit a fire underneath and boiled the water. There's a double cement laundry trough with a ringer on it. And another milk separator, washing basket, watering can. Pretty basic stuff, all in a nice, cute little galvanised iron shed with a window. How cute's that? So that completes the houses. We haven't really walked up through the engines in these cars. I might just walk up this way. Now, I'm not sure. I think there's another room or two here, and then we've got the tractors out the back. So we might make the video. Oh, we'll leave it go. We'll just have this as a super long video. If anyone wants to watch it all, they can. Oh, look, this must be Santa's ute. He's bringing presents. That's a cool old ute. How narrow are they? That is a very narrow front bench seat. You have two people of any size in there and it's going to be really squishy. But I guess back then, a lot of people were, I can't be any more blunt than saying a lot more people were skinny. Interesting thought with those cinema seats. Where were they? Let's just walk around here. Oh, look, we have a collection of Tupperware, general kitchen stuff. And the big engines on trolleys, a lot of those were Ronalds and Tippets and that sort of stuff. They were big, serious engines just for running all sorts of stuff on the farm. That was your power plant. Now around here where the shops were, we had those cinema seats, or theatre seats. Yep, here's one here. Now, I find it fascinating that back in the early 1900s, every cinema had these seats. With the flip-up seats, they were gangs of 3 or 4, and they were screwed to the floor, and you had rows of them. And if you weren't on the end, you obviously had to shuffle past people to get into your seat. Now, there's not a lot of width between those armrests. I can sit down in them, but it's not that wide that I can drop into it. I have to place myself accurately, and I'm not a big person. I reckon if you had a cinema or a theatre full of these old seats and you got most of today's population to come and watch a movie, I reckon more than half of the people would not even fit in the seats. Now, that's no disrespect to those people. It's just how times have changed. I think back then a lot of people did it tough and you had to work hard, and there just wasn't the people around that were as large as what there are today. So interesting, if you had a movie showing with these seats, a lot of people would have to stand up. Just an observation, but I find that rather fascinating. Okay, from here, I think we need to go into this room. We've done most of the main big shed. This room has lots of cabinets. Oh, we have teaspoons, we have collector plates, we have glassware, lots of model cars, a huge display of coffee cups. Look at all the cars. Amazing. Oh, there's some nice old toys. There's a donkey engine, or a steam engine, an old typewriter, more toys and games, more tins. We have an Avon collection. We have quite a lot of old bottles. I've had a look at these bottles before. There's some pretty early stuff here. I don't think there's anything super rare. But a lot of these, well, these blacks date to the 1800s, so there's some pretty early stuff there. A lot of ink bottles, a lot of labelled stuff, like old chemist bottles, cordials and beers, all sorts. There's some local stuff. Thornley was a manufacturer in Horsham. There's lemonade. These are ginger beer bottles, the glass ones. And some nice older tin plate toys. They would date to the 30s and 40s. And it looks like even some homemade timber toys, which a lot of people did back then. Couldn't afford toys for their kids, so they made them. Huge display here of tins. Absolutely massive. Ice cream tins. Who remembers getting ice cream in a tin? All different sorts. You've got Peters and Foursquare and Streets. A massive range of tobacco tins. You have canisters, larger canisters up the top. And behind me we have alarm clocks. Oh, I wonder how many of those are radioactive. I should have bought my Geiger counter. Good display of alarm clocks. Wouldn't that be a challenge to get them all going and then get them all alarming at the same time? China, salt and pepper shakers, irons. The glass is probably a bit reflective in here, sorry about that. Lots of glasses again. And suitcases up the top. Cereal toys. Little toys you got in cereal packets. Oh, that's a nice old glass centerpiece with a flower frog in it. We have a selection of service manuals for old sunshine, farming implements, harvesters, headers, small seeds box combines, all sorts of original owner's manuals and power and service books for old farm machinery. General photos on the wall. There's some memorial to the Great War. That's World War I, of course. There's the Royal Hotel. Where was that? I don't think that was the Rupanyup Hotel. Nice old Holden Ute out the front. That'd be early 1970s. Even have the Mona Lisa. Everyone's here. More bottles in this cabinet. There are some marble bottles in there, some cod bottles, some torpedoes. So some pretty early stuff in that one. And some railway lamps and country roads boards lamps. And even some little Kero lamps off bikes and cars. Okay, as long as this video's been, I'm actually going to cut it short. I didn't get to every room. I'm just going to quickly duck my head in the tractor room so you can see what it's like down the back. But I need to hit the road. I'm supposed to be back by a certain time and I'm going to be pushing it. So anyway, needless to say, it's well worth visiting here. There's another little shed they've set up. I think that was a school room. There's some old barns and things set up here. And there's lots of old farm machinery that doesn't need to be undercover in various sheds. Out over there, I'm not sure what's in another big shed. I don't think that's part of the museum. Maybe that's a workshop. But there's lots of old equipment down in these old farm sheds. And that's exactly where my battery went flat. So I found a few photos on Google just to share with you of what the machinery shed or the tractor shed looks like. These could be quite old pictures, though I'm not sure. But it was similar to this last time I was there. And I didn't have time to go in the machinery shed this time because I was running late. And now I had a flat phone. But anyway, it's a fantastic resource of early, certainly country Victorian farming history, but pretty well Australian. There's some beautiful old wool presses there. They've restored so much stuff, and a lot of stuff is just sort of saved. A lot of it isn't restored, but even a lot of machinery. It's just an amazing place. So if you're at all in the area, it's just near a small town called Rupanyup in the Wimmera, about a bit over half an hour from Horsham on the Wimmera Highway. Well worth a visit. Absolutely amazing place, and you could spend days here, really. So I hope you enjoyed that tour, guys. I'm back in the shed. It's a couple of weeks later, but I thought I'd better get this video up because I went to the trouble of taking all the footage. And yeah, if you're in the area, by all means, check it out. It's an amazing spot to visit, and it just keeps getting bigger. It's all run by volunteers, and I think the funds they raise pretty well just go back into the place. So it's just going to get better and better. So there we go. Another museum tour for you. I've done a few over my time, and I do like going through them myself. So whenever I do get a chance to go into something like that, I'll take you along with me. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.